The river did not care. It moved the way it had always moved, down a slope, through the lower ground, along the path carved over centuries of the same decision. It did not hurry, and it did not tire. The farmer had worked the upper fields for 11 years. 11 years of dry soil and half yields. 11 years of watching the lower fields drink while his sat pale, cracked through summer. The river was close enough, and that was a cruelty of it. Close enough to hear from the upper terrace. Close enough to reach by foot in 10 minutes, but not close enough to help. He began with buckets, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, hauled up the slope on a wooden yoke his father had made, the weight settling into his shoulders the same way every time. He told himself it would be enough, but it was not enough. So he built a dam, packed mud and flat stones across a narrow section of bank, angled to push water towards a cut channel he had dug by hand over 3 days. The channel was not deep, and the plan was not sophisticated. But it held for the morning, and by the afternoon, the water had found a gap at the base. By the following dawn, the dam was a ruin of scattered stones and soft mud, the channel already silting over it. So he rebuilt it, and the river dissolved it, and then he rebuilt it again. This continued. Weeks passed in the same rhythm. He rose before light, descended to the bank, repaired what the water had undone through the night. He increased the weight of the stones. He mixed the mud thicker. He drove wooden stakes into the bed to anchor the base. But the river was not impressed. It did not encounter his dam as an obstacle so much as an inconvenience, a brief rerouting before it found, as it always found, the lowest available ground. He began to wake in the night, not from noise, but from the thought of what the water was doing while he slept. He lay still in the dark, calculating, reviewing each section of the dam in sequence, identifying the weak points, planning the morning's repairs before the morning arrived. By late summer, his hands had thickened. The skin across his palms had split and healed and split again until it no longer split cleanly. His shoulders had developed a forward pull that did not ease when he stopped working. His lower back ached from the 4th hour of every morning. He was stronger than he had ever been, but the upper fields were still dry. One morning in autumn, a section of bank gave way, not violently, quietly. A slow collapse of packed mud and stone, a section he had rebuilt only 2 days before. The water found the gap immediately. It widened without effort, feeling its way through, resuming the course it had always intended. He stood, watching. He had the materials beside him, the flat stones he had carried down that morning, and a bucket of packed clay. His hands moved towards them, then stopped. He stayed crouched at the bank. The water passed through the gap and flattened into the lower channel, unhurried, finding its level. Where it ran over smooth stone, where it slowed at the bend, where it eddied in the shadow of the far bank and turned in a slow circle before moving on. He watched all of it. His hands rested on his knees, the stones set beside him, unused, while the water moved. There is a weight that stays after the story ends. Not because the story was wrong, because the story was true. Most men have tried, at some point, to govern themselves by effort alone. They set their jaw, they push, they work harder, and for a while it holds. Then the same pattern returns, the same drift, the same default, the same familiar failure at the same familiar point. And the man concludes, quietly, that something is wrong with him. Nothing is wrong with him. He was simply never given the instrument. The mind is a mechanism, not a mystery, not a moral condition, a mechanism. It operates according to fixed principles. It seeks what it has been trained to seek. It avoids what it has learned to avoid. And it repeats what it has been allowed to repeat. This is not poetic. It is not philosophical. It is structural. There is a principle beneath all of this. The brain moves towards pleasure and away from pain. That is not laziness. That is function. The problem is that most of what builds a man, discipline, restraint, sustained effort, carries a cost up front. Discomfort before reward, work before result. And the mind left untrained will always choose the shorter path, not out of weakness, out of design. This is where most men lose the game, not through lack of character, through lack of instruction. They fight the mechanism without understanding it, and the mechanism wins every time. The mind has a default setting. Left alone, it returns there. Effort, intention, willpower, they can move a man off that default for a time. But without reprogramming the setting itself, the pull remains and the drift returns. What changes this is not harder trying, it is direct training. The mind is not a fixed thing, it is a trained thing. Old responses can be removed and new responses can be installed. Not through insight, not through realization, through repetition, through method, through deliberate, repeatable process. This is not abstract. Think of a man who flinches at loud noises, not because he chooses to flinch, because the response was trained into him. The body learned, the nervous system adapted. What was trained can be retrained. The direction can change, but only if the man understands what he is working with. There is a moment, and most men have met it, when the mind refuses a task, not dramatically, quietly. A small resistance, a pull towards something easier. The untrained man follows it. The trained man sees it for what it is, a mechanism doing what mechanisms do. He notes it and moves forward anyway. This is not willpower. Willpower is force against resistance. This is something quieter. The man who has learned how his mind operates does not fight it. He directs it. There is a difference. Force is exhausting. Direction is sustainable. The brain is a goal-seeking instrument. Feed it a clear target, and it moves. Leave it without direction, and it defaults to comfort. The man who masters this does not become someone different. He becomes someone deliberate. Skill is the word that matters here. Not courage, not resolve, not will. Skill. A carpenter does not break wood through determination. He reads the grain. He selects the tool. He applies the right force at the right angle, and the result follows. Every problem a man carries has already been solved. Somewhere in the accumulated weight of human experience, the answer exists. Someone has already carried the same load and found a way through it. That knowledge does not vanish. It waits in books, in method, in the slow acquisition of skill. A man who cannot direct his mind would be directed by it. This is the only certainty. The mechanism runs regardless. The question is simply who holds the direction. There is no shame in not having learned this earlier. It was not taught. Most men were handed strength they did not ask for and given no instruction on what to do with it. The strength arrived, but the method did not. The method can be acquired. The deficit is not permanent. The setting can be changed, and the pattern can be redirected. A well-directed mind does not become soft. It becomes precise. It does not lose its edge. It learns where to apply it. This is the work. Not to become less, not to become easier or more manageable, but to become capable of governing the instrument that governs everything else. The man who can direct his mind can direct his life. The man who cannot will spend his years fighting himself. One of these is a waste of strength, and the other is what strength is for.